We're in Algebra 1, Lesson 1-4. Today's date is Wednesday, September 4th, 2019. This is a lesson that is not going to be in your unit guide, so while you do have to do the homework, and the homework is going to be put onto areas, you do not need to update your unit guide tonight. All right, so operations with positives and negatives. Who wants to read our objective for the day? Quiet raised hand. Who can read? Looks like Jade can read.
Use basic operations with positive and negative integers.
Perfect. Hugo, can you please give Jade 50 XP? Every time that someone participates, it is 50 XP. All right, so we're going through addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Those are the four basic operations that I need you to know when it comes to positive and negative numbers. So addition is generally the hardest thing when adding or when dealing with negative numbers. All right, so if you have the same sign, this is the overarching rule. If there's one rule that I want you to learn from this entire lesson, it's right here. Because everything else kind of refers back to the addition. So if you have this rule memorized, you're good to go. Of course, there's an extra rule when you're dealing with fractions. Is it an answer, Charles?
Yes.
Go for it. If it's the same sign, then
it's positive.
that's not exactly the word I was looking for. I'm looking for a three-letter word that starts with an A. That kind of looks like positive. You want to try it, Charles? It is indeed add. All right, yeah. Make sure that we are doing quiet raised hands. Charles, it is going to be 50 XP. And then if it's a different sign, it's a little bit longer. Yes, Emma?
Subtract.
It is indeed subtract. Each of those is 50 XP, Hugo. Thank you for keeping track of that. It is subtract. That's the main rule. If they're the same, add. If they're different, subtract. That's it. If they're the same, add. If they're different, subtract. And then you're always going to take the sign of the bigger or the smaller number. Which one should we take? Quiet raised hand, Eamon?
Larger number.
The larger number, the bigger number, exactly. We'll say larger. You can say larger, bigger, whatever you want to say. Take the sign of the larger number. And that's going to be 50 XP to Eamon. So I have 4 different problems to see if we can apply this rule. We will go through them together. All right, so my first question is, am I adding or subtracting?
Subtracting.
Is there a quiet raised hand? Charles, you'd be subtracting. Why, Charles?
Because there is one negative and one positive.
Yeah, there are different signs, a negative and a positive, so I'm subtracting. So thank you, Charles. It's going to be 50 XP. Thank you, Hugo, for getting that. Yeah, Kira, question.
Do you take the is it like of the when you put the 2 brackets on the end, like without would 5 be bigger or 3? Because 5 is negative 5, so technically it's smaller. So are you taking I don't remember the word.
Like if you look at it on a number line, 5 is you're already in the negative, so you're out 5 negative, and then you go back 3 and
So that's a good point, because you can think of negatives as smaller than positives. When I was using the word larger, I was thinking distance from 0, or the absolute value larger. So you can do larger and you can put absolute value on the side if you want to add that to your notes, or you can say distance from 0, if that is confusing, from 0. So 5 is farther away from 0 than, or negative 5 is farther away from 0 than 3 is. So I'm going to take the sign of negative 5. All right, so I'm subtracting. Ignore the signs temporarily. Ignore the signs. We're subtracting 5 and 3. Quiet raised hand. 5 minus 3, Larissa. 2. I'm going to stop there. Larissa gets the 50 XP. All I'm doing is I'm subtracting. I'm ignoring the signs, and then I'm going to come back down here to this third line. I take the sign of the larger absolute value, I guess, or distance from 0 number. So the sign of this, is it positive or negative? To do a thumbs up for positive, thumbs down for negative. Everyone is doing thumbs down. It's going to be 10 XP for the entire class, Hugo. So it is going to be a negative 2. That's how I do all these problems. Every single time I have an addition problem with negatives and positives, I ignore the signs, and I just do subtraction or addition, and then I do the sign at the very end, just taking the sign of the larger. Let's try it again. Quiet raised hand. For negative 3 plus negative 4, am I adding or am I subtracting? Ulysses. I'm adding. Why, Ulysses? They're both negative. They're both the same sign. 50 XP to Ulysses. All right, so I'm adding them. Who can add, ignoring the signs now, ignoring signs, 3 and 4. Kira.
7.
It's 7. There it is. I'm adding 3 and 4, and then my final step is I'm always going to take the sign of the larger number. Give me a thumbs up if it's positive, thumbs down if it's negative. It's negative, exactly. 10 XP to the entire class. It's a negative for the procedure. It's negative because the larger one was -4, and they both happen to be negative. It's kind of hard to make that mistake unless you just forget that third rule. All right, again, we're doing this bottom left, -6 and -3. Am I adding or am I subtracting? Quiet raised hand. Wyatt.
You're adding because both of the sides are negative.
Perfect, well said. All right, so I'm going to add them. Who can add 6 and 3? Esha.
9.
It is indeed 9. Sorry, Hugo, you're like tapping back and forth really quick, I know. I'll let you catch up. It is indeed going to be 9, so Esha and Wyatt have the 50 XP. And then we'll give it to Esha again. Is it going to be positive or negative, Esha?
Negative.
Why is it negative?
Because, well, they're both negative, but 6 is bigger and it's negative.
There it is.
So,
Perfect. All right. Everyone do this bottom right one by yourselves right now, using these same rules.
But there's already symbols written in there. It's just like ignore them.
What do you mean by the symbols, like the plus and minus?
No, like there's like 7 plus -2. So are we supposed to add them even though that's the wrong thing though?
So you're always adding them because this is the addition section. All I want to care about is looking at 7, looking at -2, look at their sign.
Oh, okay. I think I got it.
All right. Everyone, check with your neighbor. Check to your left neighbor. Check to your right neighbor. Maybe you don't have a left neighbor. Maybe you don't have a right neighbor. But check with your neighbors. Are they getting the answer that you got? If not, help them. All right, laptop should be shut too. All right, quiet raise hand to who can explain the entire 3-step process. Who have I not called on yet today? Eamon, go for it.
So you first, check if you need to. You check the signs if it's double positive or double negative. You add if it's double minus plus or plus negative positive positive negative, and you subtract. In this case, it would be positive negative, so you would subtract. You'd be subtracting. You would then ignore the signs, which would mean that it would just be 7 minus 2, and from there you would get 5, and then you would take the sign of the greater number, which is 7, which is positive. So you go ahead and give it a plus, or just leave it as 5.
Well said, 50 XP to Eamon. All right, give me a fist of 5. When you're adding numbers, and some of them are negative, how confident are you just adding numbers fist of 5? 5 is I'm like a master now. 4 is like I could use just a little bit more work. Where are we? I see 4, 5, 4, 4, 5, 5, 4, 5, 5. All right, those are really good scores. Let's go into subtraction now. This is where a lot of students get tripped up, but I'm trying to boil it down and make it as easy as possible. Whenever you're dealing with subtraction, turn it into addition. If you have memorized all of these hard rules for addition, just turn it into addition. And then you might be asking, well, how do you do that, Mr. Sindel? I will show you. We will turn everything into an addition problem. There are no more subtraction problems. And the one thing that we do want to remember is, I don't know if you guys have heard this rule, when negatives kiss. Have you heard that? That's one that my 2-year ago class introduced me to. Aurelio, though, likes holding hands because he doesn't like kissing. Uh-oh. That's my daycare provider. I wonder what's going on. But when negatives kiss, that's the rule that I want to be using. I'll give her a call back later. When negatives kiss, they turn positive. And it seems like a kind of cheesy rule, but whenever you have a double negative, a negative, negative, go ahead and write down 2 negatives. Whenever you have negatives next to each other, I'm calling that negatives kissing, turn them both positive, slash, slash. They are now both positive. So whenever you see 2 negatives next to each other, immediately go plus, plus. That's called when negatives kiss, they turn positive. And if you want to know why, I can explain it later, but for now, we're just going to say that's our rule. All right, so let's try this out. Example number 2. I'm going to do the first 2, and then I want to see how you can do the rest. So, what rule am I using first? I'm seeing negatives kissing. 2 negatives are right next to each other, so I'm going to turn them both positive. Now it turns into 12 plus 4. I've made it into an addition problem. 12 plus 4, shout it out.
16.
All right, 10 XP for the entire class for the procedure. 16. When negatives kiss, they become positive at 16. This is the one that I think is the hardest type of problem of them all, and this is how I deal with it. I'm going to turn it into an addition problem. I turn this into an addition problem by doing plus negative. You've probably seen this before. If it's -7 minus 2, I'm changing it to -7 plus -2. And if you want to look at it at the same form, you don't need to do this. But this is just so you can see the relationship between the last section. This is kind of like -7 plus -2. Like one of these, -6 plus -3. It's the same type of problem now. Yeah, Emma.
Isn't it like keep, change, change?
Keep, change.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Because you
yeah.
kept the negative of the 7. And then you changed.
Oh, okay.
Subtracted and changed the 2.
I've never heard of that. I'll use that from now on. I'm going to call that Emma's rule. Keep, change. I'll write it down so I can remember. Keep, change. The underlying rule is make everything into an addition problem. If you see negatives kissing, it's positive. If you just see a negative, do the keep, change. Whatever it takes, turn it into an addition problem. Now, this is going to be a -7 plus -2. I'm going through the whole process again. Well, it's the same sign. They're both negative. -7 and a -2. That means I'm adding them. Ignore the signs now. 7 and 2, I'm adding, that gets 9. Take the sign of the larger, it's -9. Over and over again. Now, you guys, 4 problems after this. See if you can do them. Check with your neighbor after every single one that you complete. All right, good luck. You have 4 problems to do right now. Apply these same rules. Volunteer, -8 minus -3, Kira.
-5.
-5, give her a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Let's see, thumbs up or thumbs down. All right, so Kira gets the 50 XP, and then everyone gets the 10 XP for the procedure. I'll let Hugo keep up with us. And then next, volunteer. Wyatt.
For 6 minus 8.
Sure, let's go with that one.
-2.
-2, give him a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Looks like you got it, Wyatt. So again, it's 50 XP to Wyatt, and then 10 XP to the entire class for the procedure. -3 minus 4, Ulysses. -7, give him a thumbs up or a thumbs down. All right, looks like you got it. So same process again, Hugo. I know, sorry, you're tapping back and forth a bunch of times. And finally, 3 minus 7. Larissa.
-4.
It is indeed -4. You don't need to do thumbs up or thumbs down for that one. All right, fists of 5. How well can we add and subtract now with negative numbers? 5, 4, 3, 8.
No,
Oh, oh, question. Okay, go for it, Esha.
for the when you 6 minus 8, you don't turn that. Oh no, because they're not kissing. That's why I got it wrong.
Oh, okay, so yeah. So that one is a keep, change instead of a negatives kiss.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you found your own mistake. Awesome. Is it a question or?
It is a question.
Okay.
So I came up with a simple idea for how to actually know if we're not there yet. So you can call me when we're to the next part.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then just to remind everyone, Q is make a fist with the 3 fingers, kind of like a gun, and then pinch down. That's a Q. Q for question. That's sign language for Q. All right. Any other questions before we move on to multiplication and division? All right. Is it a
It's a comment.
comment? Okay.
It's a comment. I came up with a simple idea how to manage multiplication and division.
Go for it.
Twins are positive, friends are negative. Plus plus is positive, minus minus is positive. And friends are negative is plus minus and minus plus. See how it works.
I do, yeah. Yeah, and if that works for you, that's perfect. I'm just going to go through this table. If you want to remember Eamon's phrases, then that is also another way to memorize this. So 2 positives, and it doesn't matter if I'm doing positive times a positive or a positive divided by a positive. It's the same sign. So you're gonna shout this one out. Let's see how well we can do this. Positive times a positive. Shout it out.
Positive.
Oh man, nice. We'll do XP at the very end, Hugo. Positive times a negative. Shout it out is a.
Negative.
Again, negative times a positive is a.
Negative.
And a negative times a negative is a.
Positive.
Negative times a negative is a.
Positive.
Yeah.
Positive.
Positive. Has anyone watched the movie Stand and Deliver by show of hands? No one? It's a movie about the AP calculus test, so maybe it's just me, but there's a scene in the movie where he makes them repeat like 10 times. Negative times a negative is a positive. They do it over and over and over again. I was thinking about that scene when I was doing that with you. Yeah, go for it, Emma.
I don't really understand like the last one because I feel like we were subtracting, but at the very end it was like for
The last one, the way that I always remember is negatives are kissing again.
oh yeah.
So two negatives, I turn them both into positives
The way
because
I
they're
remember
kissing.
this was, like both the lines, if you put them together, crossing.
Oh, you're like grabbing the other one, like, no, you're turning it into an addition sign.
Yeah.
Ah, cool, yeah. A lot of cool little tricks to remember this. I don't know if that helped you at all. It might just be hard just from here on out. I'm trying. Answer. Oh, we're already down to example 3. We only have these two, and then we're out of here. Negative 2 times a negative 8. First of all, everyone's going to shout this out. Is it a positive or a negative? It is a
Positive.
positive. Perfect. And then the answer with a quiet raised hand, Charles, is very eager. It is a positive 16. Thank you, Charles. And normally you don't need to box these answers unless you do a lot of work. If you're just writing the answer, just write it. You don't need a box. If you did like at least 2 lines, then you need to box it to show me where the answer is. All right, Hugo, you got Charles's 50 XP. And then the next one, everyone is going to shout out the answer. Is this a positive or a negative? It is a
Negative.
negative, exactly. And then the answer with a quiet raised hand, Wyatt, is a
-2.
is indeed a negative 2. All right, give me a fist of 5. How well do you think you can multiply and divide? I got some 4s, a 3, some 5s, some 10s, a 4, 5. Okay, the one thing that I didn't add to the notes that I would like to add is fractions. So I'm realizing it right now. Let's just add something really quick for fractions. If you ever have something like, let's make an example problem. Let's do 2/3 minus 1/5. Everyone write it out. 2/3 minus 1/5. The same rules still apply, but there's a tiny little twist. So this is the keep, change rule. The keep, change, but what do you change? If I keep this, change this, which one changes? The 1 or the 5? Emma, talk to us. Actually, that's an interesting, it can't be both. And I'll show us why. If I did both, a negative divided by a negative is now a,
Oh,
so it has to be one or the other.
So it has to be the one
Has to be
because it's on top.
So for you guys, I will use Emma's answer, and I think Charles, who also answered it, will always say it's the top. The top is the one that changes. Mathematically speaking, though, it doesn't matter. Top or the bottom will work. But for you guys, it is easiest for our procedure to just say, always change the top, and then you're good. So we'll say, for us, in our notes, always change the top. Always change the top. And if you want to be more specific, you can say numerator. That is the official term for top of a fraction. Question, Wyatt, go for it.
Will we be able to use these notes on the test or no?
You will not, unless you have that power. And I don't think anyone is that high level enough. So
I mean, I got.
Wait, in class.
in Classcraft, yep.
I'm gonna get that power.
Why? You're like the smartest one. You don't need them.
All right. Are there questions about this entire lesson? Because now we are officially done. I forgot about the fraction rule, but are we good?
Do
All right.
summary
So
for
we're
homework.
it applies,
Summary for homework, yep.
It applies the same with fractions. If it were to be -2/3 plus -5, it would be.
You'd be adding them because they're the same sign. Yeah. Yeah, good question.